In this training session, we're going to add floors, ceilings, foundations, and foundation walls. Now, if you recall, when we first set up our project, we set up a 2x12 floor system. If you're using the steel version, you should have selected a 12-inch deep floor system as well. Now, before we start drawing our floor, we want to make sure that we're in the correct drawing layout. Right now, we're in the wall layout, but we want to make sure that we're in the deck layout for the first level. So we'll hit our drawing model pairs icon and select first level deck layout. So anytime we're adding a floor system, we want to make sure that we're in the deck layout for that level. When we start working with the ceiling, we want to make sure that we are in a ceiling layout for that floor level. Let's just go ahead and select first level deck layout. Now you see that it transitions over to the deck layout, and our walls are now reference drawing. So it's referencing the components and walls that we previously drawn. There are several ways to insert a floor system. You can do that in the 2D window or in the 3D environment. Let's go ahead and start with the 3D environment. Hit the F2 key to switch to 3D. To insert a floor, you can add it in one or two ways. Go into the Modeling tab, under Floor and Roof, select Add Floor, or you can right-click on the background and select Add Floor from the pop-up menu. In the Components Properties window, we can go down to the default floor. If you don't recall which floor system you set up in the 3D levels, select Default Floor. The default floor system that we set up in the wood version is a 2x12 floor system. In the steel version, select Default Floor. The default floor system that we set up in 3D levels is a 1200 S200-54 C2C system with 3/4 inch plywood. We'll just hit OK. If you right-click, bring up the context menu, you'll see various tools. We've got the select material from a list, brings us back to the component properties. We have select material from another area. So if we already had an existing floor boundary with some other type of parameter set up, we can select that to add another system with the same parameters. We had add single slope. When working with floors, you're going to want to have add single slope set up. These other icons are related to a sloped system. We'll cover sloped roofs later when we get to the roof portion of training. Here we have copy shape from another area. Basically, it's a copy command. You can copy an existing floor area that you have. Horizontal area by top plane is the default when adding a floor. The top of the floor area is linked to the bottom of the wall, and the depth of the floor area extends downward. Now, there's the opposite over on this side, which is horizontal area by bottom plane, where the area that we're drawing is the bottom of the floor area and the floor extends upward. If we were to draw the floor using this setup, then our floor framing would extend up into our wall, which is not what we want. We want the walls resting on the floor. So we will stick with the horizontal area by top plane. Then these other ones are similar, but they're for sloped, which we won't cover. And then you can reset your default height if you modified the height. But primarily you want to make sure that you're either add using points or add using walls. For 3D, add using walls works best. If you are in the 2D view, you can use both, either add using walls or add using points. Add using points is useful if you have a structure that doesn't have continuous linked walls. It's common to have beams between walls that break up the continuous link, and add using walls will not work for those conditions. Let's go ahead and select add using walls. And when you select add using walls, you'll see a few more icons appear. You have this light bulb, which is find exterior walls automatically. Next wall. We'll select the next wall from a selected wall. Linked walls. Linked walls are continuous walls drawn in a single command. Next we have reference line. We can set the reference line for the floor edge. And then we can also offset the reference line from a certain distance. Let's go ahead and go through each of these. Find exterior walls automatically. The last set of exterior walls that were drawn can be found automatically by using this tool, and then it will automatically place the floor system. Now this works well if the last set of walls that you've drawn are the exact walls where you want to place the floor system. But if you go and add another series of walls, let's say a bump out here, and you draw 3 walls, then it's going to use those 3 walls to place the floor system. It really depends on when you drew your exterior walls and if they're all linked. So I'm going to right click and show you how that works. In this case, it will work fine because all we have is one series of exterior walls. So I'll click. It found all our exterior walls, and the floor was added based on the wall location. If we would have had 3 segments of walls drawn out here, then that floor area would have been drawn out here instead. So you got to be careful when you can use that. I'm going to go ahead and delete that floor system and go back, add floor, hit OK, show you the other methods. So I'm going to select a wall. When you select a wall, you'll see that it highlights the reference line. If I right click, I can go through and adjust a reference line. So if I select reference line from there, we can use the siding, which is offset from the center line, 3 3/4 inches. We have sheathing, which is the exterior sheathing. We have exterior, which is the framing, the center of the wall, interior finish, and the interior framing of the wall. The default is the exterior. So I'm going to hit cancel, and we're going to stay with the exterior. Right click again. We have 2 ways of adding the floor. We can also use next wall. Next wall will find the next wall that's linked to the wall that we have selected. So if I click next wall, then it finds this wall. You would then need to repeat the process until you get back to the starting point. But if we right click and go to the linked walls and select that, it will automatically find all the linked walls. And then you can just press V to confirm. Oops. You can see it found all the linked exterior walls and inserted the floor based on the exterior wall location. I'm going to go ahead and select that floor system, select delete, and remove it. So let's go ahead and add our floor in the 2D window. I'll hit the F2 key to switch to our 2D window. Right click, add floor. Make sure we get the default, select OK. This time I'm going to right click and select the point method, add using points. Now you may find that you're going to need to add this method instead. It's a little bit more manual. You have to go around each corner. So what you would do in this case would start from one point, lock it into horizontal, and make sure that your lines are straight and you're selecting the framing, wall framing corners. Now, unless it's a balloon frame wall, then you may need to use the inside corners. But in this case, we're just going to take it all the way out to the exterior edges. The U key, make sure we lock in the horizontal and that our lines are straight. And once I get back to the starting point, I hit V to confirm, and now we have our floor system. We can also edit a floor boundary very easily. If we select a floor boundary, you'll notice that it is made up of endpoints and midpoints. Circles are endpoints, and between every 2 endpoints, you always have a midpoint. You can left click on a midpoint and stretch the entire edge or segment. So if I pull that over and type in 24, I've just extended it over 2 feet or 24 inches. So if you find that you need to edit a structure and it's been modified, you need to extend a wall out farther, you don't have to delete the boundary and reinsert it. You can just grab an edge and extend it over. Now with the corners, you can pull those and skew them or create any shape that you need. So we'll pull that and you'll see that it takes it out and adds a skew there, and we modified that endpoint. I can grab that endpoint. Whoops. Grab that endpoint, zoom back in, pick that point, and go in, grab this other end, and pick that point, and we've got it back to our original state. You can also add additional points, and anytime you have 2 points, you always have a midpoint. So if I go in and right-click over the top of this midpoint, you'll see that we have add point. We can move the edge like I showed earlier. We can add a point, we can trim it, we can edit additional shapes, we can delete the edge. But for now, we're just going to stick to the basics. We're going to add a point. And now we can add a point anywhere along this segment. I'm just going to drop a point here. Now you notice when we added a point, we get a midpoint on this side. So from that point to that point, we've got a midpoint. And from that new point to this corner point, we have a midpoint. We can add one more. So we'll right click, add a point, and we'll drop one, let's say right around here. Now, if we wanted to, let's say, add a bump out here for a certain modification, we can stretch that out. And we've modified the boundary to include a pop out. You can also delete the points. So if I hover over a point, right click, delete that point. Come over to this one, delete the point, and also delete the ones that are here and bring it back to its original state. So we have the endpoints and the midpoint. I'm going to show you another way to add a floor boundary using basically 2 points and then making some modifications, kind of like what I just showed you here. I'm going to delete this boundary. I'm going to go ahead and add a floor again. Select the default. This time I'm going to add a rectangular shape by selecting 2 points. I'm going to make sure I have add using point selected. I'm going to select this outside corner of the framed wall and the opposite corner of the framed wall. And when I hit V to confirm, what's going to happen is it's going to expand based on these 2 point extents and create a rectangular shape. So if I hit V to verify, it took those 2 corners as the extents of this rectangle and created this shape. Now I can go in and I'm going to hit escape to get out of the command. Select the boundary, right click over the top of that midpoint, add a point right there along the intersection. And then I can grab that midpoint, stretch it, and bring it up to that corner. And now we created that exact same shape. So it's easy to manipulate a boundary, change it. So if you have any modifications, you don't have to delete it and restart. You can always modify it by adding points or removing points and creating the shape that you need. Now, if you happen to accidentally draw the floor on the wall layout instead of the deck layout, it's really easy to fix the problem. All you have to do is select the floor, right click, go to Advanced, move to another drawing model pair, and then go in and select the first level deck layout or whichever level that you're working on and select that deck layout. Now that we have our floor system in place, we're going to add some hardwood and tile floor covering. If we look at the model in 3D, you'll notice that we have OSB sheathing on the floor. We're going to cover that, like I said, with hardwood and tile. So let's go back to F2 to go to the 2D. We're going to add hardwood flooring to a majority of this floor. We can find that under the floor. And we go to floor finishes. And we have floor finish hardwood. We'll select that. Select OK. We want to make sure we're on the deck layout. We're going to right click. We want to make sure we are set to horizontal area by bottom plane. That way our selection points are on top of the sheathing and then the hardwood is extended upward, not down into the floor sheathing. We'll select horizontal area by bottom plane. And we want to make sure that in our 3D levels that we have no offset. We'll change that value to 0. and hit OK. And this offset value basically is telling us that we are selecting on the top of the floor system at the 0 point. It's not offset. So we're right on top of the floor sheathing. Select OK. Now we can go in using points. I want to make sure that we are on our point system. So let's start at this lower corner. I'm going to select the drywall or interior finish line for this. Click on that. And I'm going to lock this in the I constraint for the vertical direction or Y axis. And start clicking my points. Going around. Hit U for the X axis. And I'm just going to go to this endpoint and cut across and select the other side of the wall at the finished corner. I'm going to come around the U key. I'm going to go in and select the I key. Make sure that my lines are truly straight. I'm just going to come across and hit the U key. And we're going to go into this closet. So we'll just come in, hit this drywall corner, go in and around. Make sure we're picking each interior corner. See, over here in the kitchen, we have the fridge. So we'll make sure we go under the fridge. Up along the cabinet. So we're up to this cabinet and to the toe kick of the cabinet. So we're not going underneath the cabinet. Back over under the range. And up and underneath along the edge of the cabinet. Select these dashed lines. And up to and around the drywall corners. And since we have a sliding glass door there, we'll come over to, let's go all the way to this edge underneath the door, I guess. To that point, the drywall. Hit U key for horizontal. Hit the I key for the vertical. Oops. Zoom into that corner, that drywall corner. Hit the I key again. Hit the U key. Come back in, back down into the door. Oops. All the way to this corner. And back to where we started from. And hit V to confirm. It doesn't look like we did anything from this view, but if we go to 3D, you will now see where our hardwood has been placed. One problem that we have is the hardwood is under our interior walls in this area and also in our stairwell opening. So we'll need to remove that out of there. Let's go back to 2D. And we want to make sure that we're working with the hardwood floor layer. So we want to go over to the model tab on the left side, lower left corner, select model. And you'll see on the left tree structure, we have floor hardwood. If we click on that, you'll see the hardwood is selected. And just like a floor boundary, it's got its endpoints and midpoints, and you can edit them in the same way by deleting points and stretching points over. But we want to add a hole here, basically, that omits the hardwood from being added underneath our walls and in this area for our stairwell. So we'll click on Finish Hardwood right below that. Over on the left side, it's Finish Floor Covering Hardwood. And we want to right click on that and we want to create a hole. While that's selected, you see that it's pink back there or magenta. We'll create a hole. And now we can go in and start selecting our points. Since this is where we want to omit this and also underneath the wall. So we're going to start at this corner here, go all the way across, up to our drywall, to that drywall corner, to this corner. We're going to come back down. Let's go to the edge of that line. So we do want to see the hardwood underneath the door there. Back up and just to this side of the opening, straight down to the other side of the drywall, and back to our starting point. Hit V to confirm. And now you see that this area is not magenta or pink. We removed the hardwood from that area. So if we go back to 2D and you look, you'll notice that we see the OSB again. You can select that wall, hit H, and you'll see that it's been removed from underneath the wall. Let's go back and restore. So we'll right click, restore our hidden object. Let's select F2 to go back to the 2D window. Now let's go ahead and we're going to add floor covering over the bathroom. We're going to add a tile this time. Go to Floor. I'm going to select Floor Finish Tile and select OK. Right click, make sure that we still have the horizontal area by bottom plane turned on. Click on it. Change the offset to 0. Again, we want to be selecting on top of the sheathing, not an offset value from the sheathing. So we'll hit OK. And let's start here along this door. We'll start at this corner, work our way up and around, follow the edge of our wall finish or drywall, go around and go into the closet. Use the U key and I key to make sure that your lines are straight. The U key there for horizontal and the I key for vertical. And make sure that you're getting the yellow icons. That means you're selecting an actual point. Into the laundry room closet. And back to our starting point. Hit V to confirm. We want to take a look at that in 3D. Hit escape, and you'll see now we have floor covering in the bathroom and in the laundry room. Okay, I'm going to hit the F2 key to go back to 2D and Shift A to zoom extents. Next, let's add the hole in the floor system. So I'm going to select the floor, I'm going to right click and select Create Hole. Zoom in, and we can go around each corner, or we can use the 2-point method where we can pick this drywall corner and the opposite corner here and hit V to confirm, and it'll expand based on those 2 points. Now we have a hole in the floor system. So we hit F2 and we've added our stairwell hole. Go back to 2D. I'm going to select Shift A to zoom all. Let's go ahead and hit save if you haven't done so. Next, we're going to add ceiling material. Let's make sure that we are on the ceiling layout. So we're going to go into the drawing model pairs icon, open drawing model pair. We're going to select first level ceiling layout. Now it switches to this drawing model pair. Now we can add the ceiling based on just going in the entire structure and ignoring the walls, which is fine. It's not as accurate. So let's go ahead and take the time to actually be a little bit more accurate. Similar to how we added the hardwood, we're going to add the ceiling material based on our rooms. Let's go ahead up to ceiling, which is also under modeling, floor and roof. We also have a ceiling option. Under the libraries, we want to make sure we selected ceilings. And we're going to add the 1/2 inch drywall. First option there. Select OK. You're going to right click and make sure this time that we're set up with the horizontal area by top plane. That way, when we're selecting our points, we're selecting the top of the walls and our drywall will extend downward into the room. So we need to select horizontal by top plane. And we, again, want to get rid of the offset. So we're going to have 0 and hit OK. Let's go ahead and work in this section here. So we're going to start with this corner. And again, I want to select the finish line and go in and click from point to point. From here, hit the U key again. I'm going to go across. Oops. And over. We are going to have another stairwell here. We're just going to come across and ignore this area. Back across to this corner. I key to lock into vertical. And U key in horizontal and back to where we started. V to confirm. So that's one area. And then we're going to do the same thing with this area out here. So let's just start on this corner. Come across the drywall. The U key, go to that corner. Up to that corner, over the kitchen. Up along the wall. Lock it in horizontal. And then lock it in vertical. And just go all the way to where we started. V to confirm. So we now have ceiling over this area. Now let's work on these little rooms. Since these are rectangular shape, we can just go from one corner to the other corner and hit V to confirm to expand that shape. And then the same thing on this side, one corner to the other corner, V to expand. And then over the laundry room. Then from here, we will go from this point on the drywall to that corner to that point. Lock it in the vertical. Lock it in horizontal. Straight down to that point and back across. Oops. Backtrack. Control Z if you make a mistake. That'll take you back one segment. Back to that point. And hit V to confirm. And there we go. We have our ceiling material. We'll hit F2. Go back to 3D. And you see that we have our opening for the stairwell there as well. Now we could have added the drywall here and then taken the opening out just like we did the floor system. But in this case, knowing that we don't need drywall here, we just went straight across and up and around. Next, we're going to add our foundation walls and slab. Let's go ahead and hit F2 key to go back to the 2D drawing. In the drawing model pair icon, we're going to select basement wall layout. I'm going to hit Shift A to zoom all. Now we see the reference of the first level walls that we can use to help us draw our foundation walls. Now foundation walls are found under the walls, so we can go to the modeling tab and select wall, or right click and insert wall. In the wall libraries, we're going to close the exterior wall library and go to foundation and wall library. We're going to select number 2, foundation 10 inch. And we're going to select 10 inch poured foundation wall. Now when we select that, we'll see the wall parameters. We have the wall tab, footer, plates, and exterior finish. Under the wall tab, you'll see the foundation name or the code name for that wall, the base height, the wall height, the wall width. In this case, it's 10 inch, exterior ledge and interior ledge, and then the wall material. So if you want to select what type of material it's made out of, you can do that by selecting one from the drop down. Now you can also add a ledge. Let's say we want to add an interior ledge. You'll see that we can make it, let's say, 2 inches wide by 10 inches. If you want to see what it looks like in the model, just hit refresh. And if we zoom in, you can rotate or change the view. And you can see that we now have a ledge there. That's not what we need. So we're going to just remove that, go back to 0, 0, and refresh. We can also adjust the footer. You have the footer width and the footer height. You can also change the footer alignment. It's currently centered, but if you want to offset it to an exterior interior side and add an offset value. And you can also change the material for the footer. And we have a plates and exterior finish tab. You can set the plate type or none. You can add multiple plates, or you can change the direction of the plates to a ladder direction. So you can see here. I'm going to uncheck that. We can also align the plate to the exterior side, center, or interior and add an offset. And we can also add an exterior finish to the wall. Now, right now we have none, but you could select something from the drop down, let's say like a brick. And if we move this to a different view, you can see we have brick on the exterior face. And you can also set the airspace. I'm going to set that to none. Now if we select OK, I'm going to zoom into this corner, start our wall from that point. We're going to use the exterior corner. I'm going to lock this vertically using the lock cursor vertically. That way it alternates horizontal and vertical as we're picking our points. So first one is vertical. I don't have to worry about the constraint. It's doing it automatically. So pick that point. There's also a pan feature where you can do a shift, hold your middle mouse button and pan over. I personally just zoom back, zoom out, and zoom in, but whatever method works for you. And go back to this point where we started. And it will close our walls. And now we have our foundation walls. So if we hit F2 key, hit escape to get out of the command, and you can see what it looks like. Select F2 to go back to 2D. So next, let's add a concrete slab. To add a concrete slab that's found under the floor system, we're going to select Add Floor. Scroll down to Slabs. And we're going to just select Default. We picked a concrete slab 4-inch basement for our default in our 3D levels parameters. We will go with that and select OK. If I right click, again, we'll see these tools here. We're going to add using walls. And the next thing we need to do is make sure that we have our reference line set up correctly. This time, instead of the exterior side, we want to make sure that we're on the interior. We don't want the slab going in through the stem wall or basement wall. We're going to select reference line. We want interior instead of the exterior, which is fine. That's interior. Right click again. And now we can start selecting our walls. Now, because we only have one set of external walls, we can use the find walls automatically. So we can select that light bulb. And there you go. Simple as that. Let's view this model in 3D and make sure that everything is in the right location. Let's hit F2. Now it's kind of difficult to see the interior side. There's a feature in BD that will allow us to see the inside of a model, kind of create a cut or cross section. And that's called 3D limits. So if we right click and select set 3D limits, a box or a cube is drawn around the model, and those are all planes, and we can adjust those planes, and they're cutting planes. So let's go ahead and select this plane here on this side. And you'll notice that it has an orange border, so we're going to click on that. Now we can move the plane over. Click there and hit V to confirm. Now we can rotate and take a look. And you can see that if we zoom in, our slab is to the inside of the basement wall. And everything stacks correctly. We got our sill plate and our floor area on top of that, as well as our walls. You can also add additional 3D limits. We go ahead and hit Edit 3D Limits. Now we can take a top plane and bring it down if we wanted to, something like that. V to confirm. To reset the view, just right click and delete 3D limits, and it resets the model. Go ahead and hit F2, and I'm going to do Shift A for extents. And I'm going to hit Save. Now I drew the walls in the correct drawing model pair. They are on the wall layout. I added the slab on the wrong model pair. It should be on the deck layout of the basement. So we're going to go ahead and move that. So if you did the same thing that I did, I'm going to right click, select Advanced, move to another drawing model pair, and select Basement Deck Layout. And now I'm prompted if I want to leave this drawing model pair active. Basically, are we going to continue working in this drawing model pair or not? Let's select No. I want to go back to where I originally was, and that is the wall layout model pair. Now you notice that those lines and the hatching is gone. It's not been gone, it's been moved to the other correct drawing model pair. So if I go back and select Basement Deck Layout, then you'll see there's my slab. Very easy to rectify if you make that mistake. One last thing before we move on, we're going to add some support columns in the basement. So let's make sure that we are in the basement wall layout. So we're going to back to the drawing model pairs. We're going to select the basement wall layout. And we're going to add some columns along this bearing wall below that in the basement level. Now the columns are found under the components. So we'll go into the modeling components. And we have under building components, we have a columns folder. And all these different columns, you have box, brick, concrete. We're going to select the parametric lally column. That allows us to add parameters. Otherwise, it's going to default to these sizes. Let's go ahead and click that. Now we can add our parameters. We've got the label. We'll just leave it as lally column, the code, and the post height, diameter, the base, which is the slat or the pad, the width and the height. We're going to leave that alone, but we are going to change the post height. We're going to change that to 102 because that for 102 inches, and that is what is set up in our 3D levels. If you want to verify that, we can hit cancel, go back to the project document browser, go into settings, go into location, height, and 3D levels. You can scroll down and look at the room height, which is 8 foot 6 inches, which is equivalent to 102 inches. Just hit cancel. Go back to component, parametric lally, and we're going to change that post height to 102. And we'll leave everything else the same. And when we zoom in, it's using a reference that's not exactly centered anywhere. Doesn't really make any sense, so we're going to fix that. We're going to right click. We're going to set that reference or select a reference point. You have all these tools again, similar to what we saw when we were inserting a washer and dryer. You can rotate, scale, modify, but we're going to just set the select reference point. And we're going to zoom in and make sure that we are in the center of this circle. Get that yellow icon, and now that's our reference point. And we're going to use this endpoint of the wall, and we're going to cue over. But since we're going to have 3 of these evenly spaced, 10 feet apart, we're going to go ahead and use the multi-insert. We're going to right click again, and we have the add multiple macros in a row. And we're going to have 3 of them and a distance of 10 feet, which is 120 inches. And that's the distance from center to center. And the direction is to the right, which is fine. And now we're going to zoom in, find the endpoint of that interior wall. We're going to cue, hit the U key to move it over to the right, and type in 10 feet. Bring that over so you can see 10 feet, and enter. If I zoom out, you see now we have 3 columns equally spaced 10 feet apart. I'm going to hit escape to cancel the command. And again, we can take a look at this in 3D. And one thing that you can always do too, if you don't want to use the 3D limits, you can select a wall and hit the H to hide it. And then now you can see that there's our columns. And to restore the hidden wall, right click and you have restore hidden. That brings back the wall. Go ahead and hit F2 to go back to the 2D and Shift A to zoom extents and hit save. In the next training video, we will learn how to add stairs and how to add an additional level to this project.